Good morning and welcome back to the Now Morning Show, where because it's Friday the 13th, we are exploring our tales that sometimes have negative connotations, but giving you the knowledge to help you enjoy them as much as we do. To do that this morning, we will explore particularly some East Indian folklore. And to help me do that, I'm joined by author Vashti Bowlah, who is going to give me some insight on not just her books, but some beautiful sculptures that have adorned the set for the Now Morning Show today. Good morning and welcome, Ms. Bowlah.
Good morning and a pleasant morning to all our listeners this morning. It really is a pleasure to be here, especially to talk about superstition and folklore. One of my passions would be writing. And since growing up in a rural, small community, it is something, this oral tradition is something that you grow up with in these communities, the storytelling. So that was instilled in me from a child. Now, that all led me to publish my books under the People Tree, which is a collection of short stories, of community-based stories. It's fictional, but it's based in these small communities, in the lifestyle long ago, preserving our culture and traditions. My second book, which was published in 2019, Sugarcane Valley, Stories of East Indian and Folklore and Superstition. Now, this book is entirely on stories based on, I would say, folklore spirits and characters. I would say particularly Indian origin, meaning as a child, we will be growing up, in these villages. You have your aunties, your uncles, your aji and aja, and everybody, neighbors, everyone will be talking about this because it was part of what kept you together as a community as well.
Understood.
And I think for me, personally, as an author, that's something I try to promote in terms of the community life growing up. You know the norm, taking a village to raise a child.
Exactly.
Because we can see the effects of that then to now.
So let's talk a little bit about the effects that you hoped these books would have. Apart from conserving or preserving our history and passing it from generation to generation, why is that important? They could Google, they could create their own stories. Why is it important to pass these stories?
Because keeping our traditions alive connects one generation to the past. It helps us to understand the struggles of our ancestors and why we are here today, because they are the ones who, I would say, made that foundation for us now. And there's a sense of pride when you speak about what your ancestors did when they came. They did not have, as you said, the Google, the facility to Google or to just click and you get that information. It was never there on their hands. Whatever they had was based on their own experiences, their own hard work in terms of bringing it and passing that on to their children. So that is why I find it's very important, because of those values that they would have brought forward.
Well, let's get some of the values from under the People Tree specifically, because this would have been your first book, and I imagine the process itself might have been a bit arduous. Tell me about how long it would have taken you to put these stories together, and if any help at all or support to do so.
Well, I grew up in small communities, especially those along the sugarcane belt, Bridging Castle, which is right behind Bridging Castle, the Esperanza village. I was, I spent a lot of time in Central and South. So I was in the heart of it. And of course, I grew up as well, early morning, you catch a bucket of water, you sit with your kerosene lamp, I'll be honest, I did not have electricity or so until I was like late in secondary school, right? So a lot of that, I think it helped to make me who I am. My parents especially, these are the things you remember growing up. Whenever my mom would go to San Fernando, because we live in the South, it would be San Fernando, and she always came home with a book, regardless of what it was, a little Rapunzel, but they try to do whatever they can for us, even though they would not have had it for themselves. And as you grow older, you appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Yes, you do
as much as you said you appreciate that, we appreciate that you are creating an opportunity for next generation now to learn some things about, well, as we said, in the East Indian folklore in particular. So let's go into Sugarcane Valley specifically, because we also brought some of those characters to life in the form of these sculptures. So tell me a little bit as to what we're going to find in there.
Okay, so in Sugarcane Valley, we have characters such as for example, I'll tell you, this one is what you would call the sapin. Now, a sapin is what we call a snake woman. Long ago in the villages, you would hear about these women who couldn't keep a husband.
Oh boy.
Every time they got married, you would hear the husband died, third husband died, on and on. Now, it came from the fact that these, as they say, legend has it that these women were born with this serpent embedded in their back. And when they get married during intimacy, the snake would come to form and bite them on their tongue. However, they will not die from that. A few days later, they will die of natural causes. You will hear, oh, this one had a heart attack or so, and that would be this. So this is my, this is my interpretation of this happening.
Well, clearly it's a fantastic one because your artwork is also going to be featured in the Rotunda, yes?
Yes. These two pieces will be featured at the gallery, Tales of Our Ancestors. So it would be appropriate, for example, this is the charail. Now, the charail is the spirit of a pregnant woman who died in childbirth. So this is actually a spirit. She roams around the village carrying this fetus, so this child, who was probably stillborn, roaming around the village seeking revenge on those who wronged her. It could be her husband who maybe treated her badly, her in-laws or so. And once she gets that revenge, then she disappears.
Perhaps. It's interesting that most of these are female-centric, though. Is there a reason for that?
Well, I would think that growing up, centuries ago, even into decades and centuries ago, there was this thing about women. Women were always the ones in the villages who were, for whatever reason, maybe treated differently from the men. So whenever something happened in the village, it was always the woman who was the one
fault.
maybe who was at fault. It was always the woman's fault for one reason or the other. So that is where it would have stemmed from.
And in that case, I'm glad that you're at least making us appreciate them in a beautiful way. Now, we're going to, of course, go to the Rotunda to see these pieces and more that continuously tell us more about the East Indian folklore specifically. But where can we find your books and find you?
So my books are available at a couple of the local stores. We have a paper-based bookshop, all branches of RIK services, also Charon's Online, as well as Amazon.
Perfection. And in that case, when we get the third one?
Hopefully soon.
Ah, boy, I can appreciate that, and we appreciate you. Let me say thank you very much for lending us your sculptures for a moment or two, and for, of course, continuing to keep the tradition of our folklore alive, particularly East Indian. This is, or has been, Miss Vashti Bowlah, author, and, well, a woman charged with keeping our history going forward. This has been in our morning show. We are talking folklore, and we have more after the break.
Watch. What for do when? Them don't really know what they do when. Always want harass people, children. Foot flip back with a cap on the head. Make sure your child not outside after 10. Do when? Just what she do when. Them don't really know what they do when. Always want harass people.